all profit is value extraction. And that means that all profit is theft from you.
Corporate America is on welfare, and we got to get them off welfare.
Nothing's more important than stopping fascism, because fascism will stop us all.
Hey all, this is Bryant. I just wanted to record a little intro to this episode with a couple things that I missed the first time around. So this is a little bit of a shorter update episode. We'll have a longer full episode in 2 weeks. And so it's just me and Brandon on this one, doing a little bit of updates on nuclear vehicles and a few other things. And I know at one point Brandon mentioned getting blackout drunk for an episode, and that episode has not been released yet. So something to look forward to, I guess. That's probably one of the ones we'll save for a rainy day when we can't put out a normal episode, but we haven't edited that one yet, so you know, it'll come out sometime. A couple other things. I think at one point I said megawatts and I meant gigawatts. That'll make sense when you come to it in the episode. And then I also mentioned a sci-fi story and a album, and both of those are free to listen to or read, and I'll have the links in the show description as well. Also, we might do some more like shorter bonus episodes on our off weeks when we're not all together. Maybe just one of us giving a little quick update or a little story, or I don't know, something like that. I might do an episode on the time I very briefly, for about, I don't know, less than 24 hours, owned a Volkswagen Corrado. Well, sort of owned, had possession of. So I don't think I told that story on the podcast before. If I did, it was on the Shitboxes episode, which we recorded a long, long time ago, and I don't remember everything, and I don't really want to go back and listen to it all over again. So let me know, send us a comment or an email or something on social media, and let me know if I already shared that story. Otherwise, I'll record it and put it out probably as a bonus episode next week. Yeah, I think that's about it. Let me double check my notes here. Also, the nuclear-powered vehicles of the Cold War, that was episode 6. I think I said 5 at some point. All right, that's all. On to the episode. Hi, welcome to Cars and Comrades.
Thanks.
Hey, this is your leftist car podcast for the time being, the time period in which we're doing this, the day, the week, month, whatever. This is Bryant and Brandon.
Yeah, we're short-staffed this week.
Yeah, I don't know. We just kind of threw some shit together here. We'll see if this ends up as its own episode or tacked onto something else. I'm not really sure, but so I got a couple things to talk about here, Brandon. I guess one thing I was gonna say is apologize for the last episode where I was making this noise because I was just fidgeting with a ball bearing and a magnet. So I'm gonna try not to do that and keep my hands nice and folded in front of me.
If we're doing apologies, I should probably apologize because I drank like almost a half a bottle of whiskey in 45 minutes while we were on the call. And I'm like nervous to hear that episode because I feel like I just was like a raving lunatic by the end of it.
Yeah, I mean, not as bad as you were that one time that we didn't record, but
Oh, I don't remember what that was. I was blacked out by the end of the last recording.
No, I think it went pretty good, but I don't know. We'll find out. I haven't listened back to it, so.
Oh, good.
Yeah, I think Connor was going to take a look at that one, but we'll see.
Like, let's see if we can save this wreck.
Yeah.
All right, what are we talking about today, Bryant?
Well, I guess I was also going to apologize just for not being able to read text fluently out loud on the last one. So sorry, Willow, if I fucked up your email. But I don't know, Brandon. You were saying you might volunteer to do those in the future.
Oh,
You've
more than
got-
happy to. I'm pretty good with that sort of stuff.
Yeah, but I guess one of the things I was gonna bring up is I don't know. Since we did the pet peeves episode a while ago, I've thought of a few other things that annoy me in the car world. One of them is burble tunes. So basically, making your car run worse so that it like backfires on deceleration.
I keep wondering about what is the deal with that, because
Yeah,
I don't really do tuner cars, like, you know me, I'm old muscle, so
right. And if you have a carburetor on your car, it's just something that happens naturally, right? You know, you're
not if it's tuned well.
yeah, okay. Fair enough.
In my experience, if your carb is tuned so that you're lean popping on deceleration, like, fix that immediately before you like have to buy a new engine. Ask me
Yeah.
how I know that.
Yeah, actually, come to think of it, that happened to my moped right before the engine seized. But
I did some top end work on an old Chevy 350 in one of my vans, and we didn't mess with the tune on the carburetor at all, and just figured it would be fine. I did start noticing it lean popping, and I'm like, that's probably fine. Like, that's not that big of a deal. And it was grenaded by like probably 600 miles,
yeesh.
which, if that sounds like I put a lot of miles on it before it died, it was a road trip, so
Oh,
it was dead within a week.
yeah. Yeah, that sucks. But I mean, from what I've seen of burble tunes, it's usually newer, like BMWs and like the Ford Fiesta ST or similar cars like that, where they put like the Cobb access port in there. They put a tune and an exhaust on it, and they're like, I need to make this even louder so that people will notice me and see that I have a shiny fast car.
I run
So
headers on a van, so I can't criticize them.
yeah, but I don't know. Maybe just BMW drivers in general bother me. I mean, there are those stereotypes of like they don't use turn signals and whatever, but I maybe there's a little bit of basis in fact for that.
Like, if we're being less brand specific, I just generally attribute it to the more of a like luxury oriented brand a car has, the more entitled the drivers have a tendency towards being. It I go on my tirades about Lexuses and shit, but like at the end of the day, I think that's it. And I think like the mid tier ones, like a Lexus or like a BMW or something like that, have a weird tendency to be almost worse than actual luxury cars, because it's usually like petite bourgeoisie who really value themselves a lot higher than even their like somewhat all right position in like the managerial class. Like, not always, but they're like, I don't need to use a turn signal. They'll get out of my way.
Yeah, exactly.
The road was paved for me.
Right. And I guess the other thing that annoys me, I haven't heard this too much other than on the Smoking Tire podcast. So I don't know if this is like a common thing with automotive journalists or if it's just Matt Farah, but he tends to, when he's talking about a new car, drop any like articles in front of the name of the car. So he'll be saying stuff like, "Have you driven Mustang?" Like, not "Have you driven the new Mustang?" or like, "Have you driven a Mustang?" He'll just say, "Have you driven Mustang?"
Is he like Eastern European? And maybe it's like, have you driven Mustang?
No, he's like from Connecticut or something.
Is Connecticut like maybe also like a weird part of Serbia?
Yeah, I don't quite understand it. Like, maybe it's something that started with like automotive marketing, like PR type folks. Like, I think, because I remember there was a lot of confusion around when the Prius came out. People are like, what is the plural of Prius? Is it Priuses? And someone figured out the Latin plural is Priora. But, it's not like any of us speak Latin. But
I'm going to say it's Prion.
that works too, yeah. But I think the official line from Toyota was Prius vehicles or something like that. You know,
So
something.
they didn't feel like answering the question. Gotcha.
Right. Yeah. I don't know. So, yeah, maybe listener write in if you've heard this kind of shit. Maybe, I don't know. Maybe it's just a pet peeve of mine and it's not something to get, you know, too worked up about, but I don't know, whatever. But I guess the bulk of what I had in my notes today is some updates on the nuclear vehicles episode that we did way back. I think it was like episode 5 or something. And I've found a few other new ones since then. Brandon, did you look at any of these notes here already, or?
I've been in the woods for the last 2 days, so I've not had much opportunity to look through anything.
Okay, well, I think you can be forgiven for that. I mean,
I got home 5 minutes before this call started. So
yeah, we did kind of do this at the last minute without a lot of notice. So
you get what you pay for, people.
Yeah, maybe I'll cut that out. That sounded kind of mean, saying, "Hey, have you done your homework?"
Oh no, you're good. Be mean to me if you want to. I did not do my homework. Scold me, teacher.
So the first one that I found, so these are all basically just designs that were sketched up by some crazy asshole in the Cold War. You know, none of them really built. The first one is the Lockheed CL-1201, and this was a nuclear-powered transport aircraft. And the premise behind it was it would fly in a loop around the Atlantic between the US and Europe, and basically either military transport planes like C-130s or like even commercial airliners like 747s or whatever could latch on to the back of this thing with like a tow rope, and that way they wouldn't have to carry as much fuel with them. So you could have smaller planes doing, you know, transatlantic flights, and this a nuclear powered airplane would, you know, tow them most of the way, basically.
Huh.
So it's an interesting idea, but it's kind of insane, like to build this gigantic airplane. Like they were talking about like how they would have to like build special runways for it, and you know, all kinds of crazy shit.
All right. That reminds me of an expression that an insane friend of mine used around me the other day, which is, it's like a McDonald's bathroom. You're just throwing shit at the walls and seeing what sticks.
Yeah, pretty much. You know, this was, they're like, hey, what can we do with nuclear reactors? Maybe power a gigantic plane. What would we do with that giant plane? I don't know, tow shit.
I mean, it was a different time. The world had a new toy, and damned if they weren't going to play with it.
Yeah. And they also talked about building a seaplane version, and then also having like fighter planes attached to it under the wings, like a couple of F-4 Phantoms, like as escort planes or whatever, sort of, I don't know, docking with it like an aircraft carrier or something. So there's a lot of weird shit going on with that. The second one I've got, the only thing I know, like I don't have like a model number or anything, and I couldn't really find a whole lot of information about this, but the only thing I found was like a plastic model kit for this Northrop airplane. Was supposed to be a nuclear powered flying wing. So like Northrop in the 50s or 40s and 50s had been experimenting with flying wing airplanes, sort of like the B-2 bomber. But this was like before they had, you know, like modern computer aided design and avionics and stuff. So it was all pretty primitive, and I think a lot of their original, you know, prototypes crashed. But they also looked into doing a nuclear powered version. And the thing that caught my eye about this is, you know, with all these nuclear powered planes, they were worried about, of course, about the crew being exposed to too much radiation. So like,
to hell with everyone they're flying over.
Yeah, exactly. And in this one, they're like, well, what if we just put the cockpit on one of the wingtips?
Yeah, I'm looking at the design, and I was waiting for you to explain that. I was like, surely that's not what it looks like.
Yeah. So just everyone's over off on the left side, and the reactor's in the center, or maybe a little off to the right to balance it out. But yeah, it's kind of insane. I don't know if that would have worked, but I
Well,
don't know.
everyone
It was
knows that
interesting.
radiation can't really travel more than a couple of, like, what, dozen feet?
Yeah, I think. I mean, it's. I think it's like I forget the equation or whatever, but it's like root mean squared or something. It's kind of like sound and decibels and shit, but basically like radiation intensity drops off exponentially with distance. So like the further you can get away, the less shielding you need, basically.
Okay.
Uh, like the original ones that they were testing in the 50s with a small nuclear reactor in the actual airplane, those they had like 11 tons of shielding or something like that in like
Oh, is
around
that
the
all?
cockpit. Yeah.
And that's 11 tons of shielding, not 11 tons of, like, everything.
Right. Yeah. No, I'm sure the reactor was another several tons. I'm not sure.
Cool, cool, cool.
So yeah, I couldn't find anything about that. So listeners, if you know anything more than I do, let me know. And then this one, let me double check something here real quick. Oh, and that the CL-1201 I found out about on this YouTube channel called Found and Explained, and they talk about all kinds of weird aircraft projects. It's kind of interesting, sort of weird designs from the past. Like at one point in the like 80s, I think they were talking about doing a flying oil tanker. So, if you want to look at some weird projects that never got built, that's one of
Did
them.
you say in the 80s?
I think so. It might have been even the 90s.
I like how this idea came about, like, well after all of the reasons why it would be a bad idea were, like, glaringly obvious.
Yeah, no, it was a terrible idea. I mean, it was basically like I don't have the details in front of me, but it was like in the when they were starting to drill for oil in Alaska, they're like, well, it's gonna take a shit ton of resources to make an oil pipeline or like a a shipping port to get this oil out of here. So like, why don't we just build an airport and fly it out? And I think they figured out that was a bad idea. And yeah,
I guess I shouldn't be overly critical of ideas that never went into production because they realized how stupid it was. That just seems like so stupid that it was like it's obvious from its inception that it's just not gonna pan out.
right. But another thing I found on that channel was, I know this is a really dumb idea, the nuclear submarine ramjet bomber. So this was Convair came up with this design where it's a submerged, I guess it's a submarine that can go underwater.
Most
With
submarines can go underwater.
well, it could propel itself with basically a nuclear ramjet engine, and basically take seawater in, run it through the reactor, heat it up, and squirt it out the back for propulsion. And then it would lie at the bottom of the sea for several weeks or months at a time. And then when you need it, so this was basically an evolution of that Project Pluto cruise missile that I was talking about on the nuclear vehicles episode.
Okay.
But it had people in it. This one was a bomber with people in it. And so when they got the call, okay, go bomb the Russians, they would shoot up out of the water and then start flying, and they would have a tank of seawater inside the bomber that would go through the reactor and jet out the back. So it'd basically be like a steam powered rocket, and then it would do a similar mission to the Project Pluto cruise missile. It would go down very low to the ground at like Mach 4 and shoot out nuclear bombs and irradiate the countryside underneath it. And then in theory they could land it in the water and then go underwater back to base. So it was kind of a weird concept, but I don't know. I don't know if it would have worked or if it would have just been. They were saying that it probably would have been like super super noisy underwater with this weird jet drive thing, so that like everyone could hear where it was with sonar. So I think that's why the project got killed, but also just because it was kind of insane.
Okay. I'm having a hard time even making complete sense of that idea, so I can't even wholly criticize it. But like,
Yeah, and I'm not entirely sure how the engine worked. It seemed a little hand wavy, but I don't know. Someone at Convair decided it was worth looking into. And then let's see. I also the last sort of project idea that I've seen was the nuclear saltwater rocket. So this is like a
oh,
rocket.
that's the machine that makes nuclear saltwater taffy.
I mean, you could make taffy out of this, but you wouldn't want to eat it because it would be very radioactive.
So I would get superpowers,
Sure, yeah, you'd
like not
become
having a bottom jaw.
yes, like
Gum man.
well, there was that happened to that one guy. Oh, what
Well,
was
that's what
his
happened with
name?
the radium girls.
Yeah, exactly. There was also like a radium tonic that they sold to like rich people, and there's some rich guy, I forgot what his name was, that was a big proponent of this tonic stuff and drank it all the time, and then his jaw fell off. So yeah, fun stuff. But this one, the nuclear saltwater rocket, it's designed basically for like really fast, like deep space missions where you'd be going to like, I don't know, Jupiter with like several hundred tons of payload or something like that.
Okay.
And it's basically you have a giant tank of uranium that's dissolved in water, maybe with a few other elements in there to make it like more soluble or whatever. And then you have it in and amongst that, you have something that absorbs neutrons like boron so that it doesn't turn into a nuclear reactor just in the fuel tank. And then you pump it into a rocket nozzle where there's no boron, and that starts the nuclear reaction in the rocket nozzle. So you basically have a nuclear reactor that's just spewing, steam and uranium out the back, very fast as your rocket engine.
Okay. It's now occurring to me I have very little like fundamental understanding of how nuclear propulsion works.
I mean, this is so I found this video from a guy named Scott Manley, who he's a pretty interesting channel if you're interested in like rocketry or space. And he does like the like Kerbal Space Program type stuff. He talks about like NASA and SpaceX and all that kind of stuff. So he's a good resource if you're interested in space travel. But so he was saying that this isn't like something that anyone's done. This is just an idea, but it would work technically. There's nothing like this obeys all the laws of physics. It's nothing too crazy, but it would basically be like having the Chernobyl explosion happening, continuously inside of a rocket engine. So it'd be very powerful. It would be, I think, around twice the power of Chernobyl at its peak during the explosion.
Wow.
So I think it was around, I want to, it was either 700 gigawatts or megawatts continuous. I should probably know that because that's quite a difference.
It's a big difference, but I don't have like a good sense of scale on this anyway. So it's basically all I know. Like you need 1.21 gigawatts to time travel. That's it.
Yeah, and like your typical nuclear reactor is putting out like 1 to 2 gigawatts continuously, like to the electric grid, and then maybe it's 50% efficient. So there's another, similar amount going to just heat loss. So this is just, putting a bunch of heat and kinetic energy out the back. And I don't know, it looks pretty interesting. Like he was saying, because the exhaust is so fast, it would basically just fly outside of the solar system, and you wouldn't have any like radioactive particles like falling down to Earth or anything.
Yeah.
But also, this is not something that you would like launch from the ground. This would you would assemble this in space, and
Yeah, in that respect, it doesn't actually sound like the worst idea, except in so much as like we just probably have better ideas for like means of propulsion at this point.
right, yeah. I mean, this would be like if you want to go to Jupiter in 2 weeks, or Alpha Centauri in like 20 years or whatever. Yeah, don't quote me on those numbers, but and what was I going to say? This one, they have a specific impulse of 10,000 seconds, which basically, my understanding of specific impulse is it's if you take a pound of fuel, or a kilogram or whatever, and you get a pound of thrust force, or a kilogram or whatever, how long can you do that for? How efficient is the engine at taking 1 pound of fuel and making 1 pound of thrust? You know what I mean? How long does that last you for? And most like chemical rocket engines are around, like I think around 500 seconds specific impulse. Most of the nuclear rockets that I talked about previously in the previous episode was around like 800 or 900 seconds, and then this one is 10,000 seconds. So it's a
Oh,
very efficient design.
okay.
But yeah, like it's not something that you would just build on the small scale to just piddle around with. It would be a big spacecraft for exploration or whatever.
So I know that this is an oversimplification, but in this case, we're effectively talking about like using water as rocket fuel.
Yeah, basically. So I mean,
My objection to that is I know that like in a certain scale, we're not exactly running out of water, but given like our tendency as a civilization to really abuse every energy source that we can come around, I don't think we should be sending all of our water into space.
I mean, this would be something like the size of like a Saturn V rocket or something. It wouldn't be like all of Lake Michigan or something. It would just be a good sized tank of water.
Yeah, sure, it starts that way.
Yeah, this is not. I mean, you're finding the uranium and refining it is going to be the tougher task, I think. Maybe spewing all that uranium out into the solar system would be less efficient than like having a nuclear reactor on the ground and just using it to power things, make electricity or whatever. But if you really want to explore the galaxy, or the solar system, and go super super quick, have like a muscle car spaceship, this is the engine for you.
Well, when you put it that way, yeah, I want.
Yeah, so let's drag race to Alpha Centauri with this thing. And then I just had a couple other videos that I found that aren't anything new necessarily, but they do a good job of explaining some of the stuff that I had talked about previously. So there's a channel called Curious Droid, and he did a short little video about nuclear powered planes, trains, and automobiles. And so he talks about some of the same projects that we talked about previous. He does say that the Russians actually built a functional nuclear powered bomber as a test vehicle, but I wasn't able to find anything confirming that. So I'm not sure if that's true. It seems like it was either that hoax that I was talking about, where they sort of leaked it to the press that they had been building one just to fuck with the Americans, or it might have been the test where they put a nuclear reactor in a plane just to see what the radiation would be like, but not actually using it to propel the airplane.
Okay.
So I'm not. He might have gotten his facts a little mixed up there. I'm not really sure. And then I also found. Let me find the source for this. The channel's called Documentary Tube, and it's a like 18-minute documentary from like I think the early 70s, called How It Works Nuclear Propulsion. And so this is the nuclear rocket engines, the NERVA rockets that I was talking about previous. So if you wanted more of like a visual aid of how the engine was put together, this is a good video about it. I think it was put together by the like defense contractors that were building or designing these things, sort of as a way to sell it to, NASA or, the Air Force or whoever was building rockets at the time. And they sort of describe using these as like a way to get to Mars. Their idea is basically you wouldn't need anything much bigger than like a Saturn V. If it was nuclear powered, you could go to Mars pretty easily with that, because it's about twice as efficient as your equivalent chemical rocket at using fuel to make thrust.
Okay.
So that's kind of cool. I think that's all I have for the nuclear powered update stuff. I don't know if you had anything, or I can talk about that theory with the King Gizzard album. I don't know if we want to put that in this one too.
I don't know. That's up to you. I don't really have much because, as I told you before, I've been sick. I'm dealing with Lyme's disease right now, and I've just been working overtime, being sick, and partying.
Yeah.
So I've not done anything productive for about 2 weeks.
Yeah, and I've been busy too. I might be moving in a few months, so I've been looking at places. So, but I don't know. I do have this this one thing I can talk about for a little bit, and then I think we'll wrap up here. So, if you saw me in person in the last year, I might have told you about this theory, because for a while I was kind of going off on it for a while. But the music that we use for like our intros and outros and most of our like transitions and stuff is all from this album called Polygon Wonderland by King Gizzard and the Lizard Wizard. And it's one of my favorite albums of theirs. It's sort of like a prog rock album with like a lot of polyrhythm. So sort of like, I'm not really big on music theory. I don't really know the terminology, but it's a lot of weird time signatures and sort of jazz drumming and stuff like that. But it also, like, the lyrics and the story of the album is sort of like all about people exploring like new lands and like seeing weird creatures, and also like conspiracies and secret societies and stuff like that. So it's there's this whole thing with King Gizzard that the fans call the Gizzverse, which is yeah, it's an interesting name. Yeah, and King Gizzard fans are often called Gizzheads. So
I've listened to them before and had have some friends who really like them, but this is all news.
Okay.
I did not.
Yeah, so like it's I'm not sure how much of this is intentional by the band, or if this is just projection that just some dumb theory that a bunch of stoners came up with to sort of like link all of the albums and songs together in this like extended story. But for this album, I guess I don't know if this is a theory or just an idea, that it seems to be linked to a novella, sort of like a short story, sci-fi story called Missile Gap by Charles Stross, who's one of my favorite sci-fi authors. And this novella, I won't give too much of it away, but it has a lot of these weird nuclear powered vehicles in it, which is kind of why I bring it up in this episode. And the premise is that it's at the height of the Cuban Missile Crisis, and then instantly the Earth changes shape, and instead of being a globe, it's a flat Earth now. And
what do you mean now?
So like right at the I mean, this is a like alternative history.
Oh, you're one of those like globe Earth people. I'm sorry.
Yeah. Okay. Well, in that aspect, just imagine if the Earth was round and then it became
See,
flat all suddenly.
my Earth is non-hierarchical.
Yeah. Okay. It's horizontalist. It's
Yes.
so
The only true communist Earth is flat.
yeah. So in this story, basically the Earth becomes flat, and it's I forget if it's called a Mercator projection. Basically, it's spread out so that like the U.S. and the Soviet Union are no longer within missile range of each other, and that changes like the whole geopolitics of the Cold War after that. So they're not really sure why this happened, but basically they're theorizing that they're now living in like a computer simulation of the Cold War, like built by, I don't know, aliens or future humans or something. But it appears that they're on this like gigantic disk, which I should probably look up what it's called. There's like a name for this. Um, Let me find it. It's on the Wikipedia page. An Alderson disk. So some guy named Alderson invented this idea of an Alderson disk, where it's basically you have a flat disk where just from the mass of it, it has the same gravitational attraction at the surface as the Earth would, but because it's bigger than the Earth in diameter, it's much more massive. So like the escape velocity would be bigger than more than the Earth. So like you couldn't take off from it in a rocket and fly away. And it's basically, I don't quite understand the dimensions of it, but it has a sun in like a hole in the middle. So it's like a donut shaped disc with a sun in the middle that gives you your sunlight. Yeah, this is. I mean, it's a weird idea, but basically, they're like, did these aliens or future humans like, peel the Earth like an orange and lay it out on this disc, like molecule by molecule, or are we just in a simulation? And then this is what they, this is what they, how they chose to simulate it. But because it's bigger than the Earth in land area, it's like what did they say? I don't have a number for that, but because it's bigger than the Earth, there's other like continents outside of the normal range, like that are like totally unknown and unmapped. So part of the story is Yuri Gagarin is flying a nuclear powered ekranoplan, which is a type of seaplane, around to like map these new continents and like figure out like the life forms on them. So they're not really sure if these other continents are like other alien planets that were also brought to this new simulation thing, or if they're like different versions of Earth that were like saved from a different backup or whatever. So I won't give away the story, but that's the basic premise. And there's like a weird sort of conspiracy going on with like between different agents that are sort of playing off of the Soviet Union and the U.S. at the same time. Like Carl Sagan is one of the characters. It's fucking weird book, but it seems to have like, I'm not sure if the album Polygon Wonderland was based off of this story or if it is just a coincidence. But what I was thinking is like, this would make a really cool movie is if you made a movie out of this story and used the music from King Gizzard. I think it would match well. So that's basically my theory, and I'm probably too lazy to ever write a screenplay for it. And if I did, I don't think it would ever get made. But I don't know. That's my idea, I guess.
Car people don't have free time to do other things.
Right. Yeah, and I'm also a little ADD, so I have a short attention span for actually sitting down and writing stuff like that. But I don't know. That's my idea. If you're, I'll put the links in the show if you want to listen to the album or read the story and tell me that I'm stupid, or tell me, yeah, man, that's a cool idea. You should write that screenplay. Or actually, I'm a good screenwriter. I can do that. So, yeah, let me know, I guess.
And if someone writes the screenplay, we're going to need somebody who has some experience in movie production to get this produced. So actually, anybody in the film industry, get at us.
Yeah.
I actually might be in the film industry soon, by the way.
Yeah.
No update on that, really.
Okay.
Just I've got my paperwork in, and I'm waiting on a call. Supposedly, they'll call me within the next month or so.
Cool. Yeah. Well, I think that's all I've got for this one. This one, I guess, is going to be a little shorter, or maybe it'll just, like I said, get tacked onto something else that we do and put out.
Or maybe it's bonus content.
Yeah. We were talking about doing just like maybe on the weeks that we're, on our off weeks, every other week, do just like a short little bonus episode with some updates or some just random bullshit that we were thinking about or whatever. So that's kind of where I'm at with this.
I'm good with this being a short one. I am recovering and I feel awful.
Yeah, and I didn't sleep that well myself, so I think I'm gonna get some food and I might go see if Rafi and James need help on their race car still. So,
all right,
maybe that will end up in this episode if I talk to them on mic. But I think I'll be concentrating on actually, working on the car rather than recording anything. So,
all right, sounds solid. So is that us for today?
I think that's it. I'm sure if Connor was here, he would say follow us on social media and what is it? Like and review and subscribe and all that stuff.
Yeah, I'm not good at that stuff either. Just we have social media, use it. We like interacting with people who enjoy what we do.
Yeah, and thanks for all the positive comments that we have been getting lately. So, yeah.
I got to get on the socials more. I didn't even know we were getting all this positive feedback.
Yeah, it's been mostly good. We had one weirdo call us reactionaries just for talking about internal combustion engines.
Okay.
So,
I mean,
yeah,
somewhat.
Like,
off camera before this, we were discussing like where you draw the line between like making communism and leftism in general accessible versus the genuine need to completely restructure society, which is off-putting for even a lot of leftists.
Yeah.
And that falls well into like that sort of territory. Like, yes, I respect that this is a hobby of mine that is generally not positive for the world at large, but it is also a thing I enjoy. And so whatever, go fuck yourself if you said that.
Yeah. And I don't know, we were also talking about like maybe going into a little bit more like political theory on maybe some of the bonus episodes or maybe some of the regular episodes. I don't know. I think that was Connor's idea, but we'll talk it over with him and figure out something. We don't want to like, there's plenty of other podcasts for political theory but maybe we can, give our own spin on things a little bit.
I've done some reading, but I'm none too eager to flaunt my ignorance.
Yeah, I'm in the same boat. I know enough to make me dangerous and, enough to maybe say something stupid. But
yeah, I'm sure if I like actually tried to discuss political theory in the context of like a medium such as podcasting where people cannot interact with us but can criticize us, we will just get torn to shreds. But whatever. I like learning.
Yeah. All right. Well, I think that's about it then. I'm going to stop recording here.
All right. Bye, everybody.
Bye.
We don't think you fight fire with fire, bitch. We think you fight fire with water, bitch. We gonna fight racism, not with racism, but we gonna fight with solidarity. We said we're not gonna fight capitalism with black capitalism, but we going to fight with socialism.
Amazingly, or not so amazingly, Cuba's crime rate is one of the lowest in the entire hemispheres. Oddly enough, it seems that when people have their basic human needs met, they're less likely to commit crimes.
My calculations are correct. When this baby hits 88 miles per hour, you're gonna see some serious shit.
The free market mythology, it argues that the most ruthless, selfish, opportunistic, greedy, calculating plunderers, applying the most heartless measures in cold-blooded pursuit of corporate interest and wealth accumulation, will produce the best results for all of us. Through something called the invisible hand.
What are you smiling about?
Dude, I almost had you.